Wake the fuck up. It's time to talk business. Jared Taylor, Matt Best, and Evan Hafer proudly present Blackhearted. Sponsored by BlackRifle Coffee Company and Arson Wave.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Mm-hmm.
Good to be back. Good to be back in the booth.
Yeah. What do you think of the new setup?
I like it. You know, I can look deep into the eyes of our guests. It's fucking rad.
Deep. You can look deep into them.
Deep into the eyes of our guests.
Who do we have this week?
I think we've got some SOFLETE.
We have a repeat. Aaron was on like
SOFLETE. What do you guys?
SOFLETE, you smart ass.
I like saying SOFLETE.
SOFLETE. Every time I hear SOFLETE, my blood boils.
SOFLETE.
It's French.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron was on like episode 3, wasn't he?
It was one of the early ones. Yeah.
It was in the other room.
Yeah.
Like in the blue room.
He's a plank holder.
Ooh.
Yeah. One of the Ogs. One of the Ogs.
Gotta get a t-shirt.
I know, right? All right, so we've got Aaron and Brent from SOFLETE. I'm going to let them do their own little intro. So, Brent, why don't you kick it off?
I am the CMO or CEO of SOFLETE.
One of them?
One of them.
You
It
don't
depends
know
on
which
the
one?
day.
Yeah.
One or
I'm
both. Talking to, one or both. I still do some of the human performance stuff, but I've shifted a lot to the business side and getting off active duty, really trying to focus and hone in on the business side of the company, if that makes sense. So you guys did an intro for SOFLETE on episode 3, right? Like what it was all about.
I don't think so. I think we just talked about money.
Yeah, we talked about money.
Money. Oh, well, that's not what SOFLETE's all about at
Right.
all.
No, not at all.
No, not at all. We'd be really bad at what we did if we were all about money.
Well, I don't think SOFLETE is a funding mechanism, right?
No.
So that's what I'm saying.
No,
It's a totally
no.
different business model.
A little bit different.
Right.
Yeah. It's super different, actually. The business model is weird and kind of counterproductive by a lot of normal standards. So what we actually do is design products, whether it's programs or supplements or physical goods for special operations guys. And as much as we can, we either give those away, like with the programs, or at a very discounted rate or in care packages to the guys that we design it for. And then we sell it to civilians because soft guys are usually pretty fit and people identify with that and want to do what they do.
Right.
So selling it to the civilians and regular folks, so to speak, allows us to put the guys on the program for free. And we've got, I don't even know how many active duty operators on the programs, but it's a lot. And we continue to try to reach out to the community and get them doing the things that are going to be better for them and beneficial for them.
So tell me your personal story here with.
Man,
I
that's a loaded
think
question.
Not all of it. You know, you don't have to go into everything, but I think adventures in business. We've actually been talking for several years now.
Yeah, 2.5, 3 years. Like when BlackRifle and SOFLETE started at the same time, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, one of our mutual friends introduced us virtually, and we've been in bed together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much since then.
Snoodling since then. So background in business. Aaron did his background. Aaron and I have been involved in business together for 6 years, roughly.
Yeah, something like that.
Wow.
Quite a while. So oddly enough, all of the guys in SOFLETE, we all met through something called the Silent Warrior Foundation, which is a very small, like very Boy Scout nonprofit that we all put a lot of time and effort into that supports the veteran community at large. And so it was started in memory of some friends of ours that we lost, not the guys involved in SOFLETE, but the guys that started Silent Warrior, started this thing in memory of our friends. Long story short, that's how I ended up meeting Aaron, Bill, one of the other partners, and then Nick, essentially through that network of guys kind of like came together working on a nonprofit, and a real nonprofit, like no salaries or like fancy trips paid out of it type of deal.
Right. I like that. I like that when you say a real nonprofit.
A real nonprofit.
Yeah. A real nonprofit.
A loaded statement, but
yeah. Well, and we talk a lot about that here. We've talked a lot with other guys that have come in. We just had the guys from the Glenn Doherty Foundation. They came in. They talked a lot about, you know, their ability to kind of push into the nonprofit side because they have the foundation. And really what they're doing is they're funding, I guess, additional education for retired SOF guys.
Cool.
And but we talk about I talk about this all the time because you see guys in the nonprofit world. It's like they travel and take more fucking vacations than I have my entire life.
Right.
And it's pretty interesting, you know, how you just like watch these people.
It's
as
like their personal checking account.
It's really nice for them. They've done a really good job to just kind of architect their own little oasis of vacation.
Yeah, because they're just fucking off and then writing it off every day. Oh no, I was talking to people about the nonprofit or whatever. So it's
scouting
like,
trips.
Scouting trips.
What would that be? Wouldn't that be great? Like,
So ours is like, I just went out to an event in Arizona and SOFLETE paid for my ticket. You know, we keep the cost off of the nonprofit. Sometimes it costs some money to make money. Like if we do a golf tournament, we got to pay the golf course, right?
Right.
But so anyway, we met through that, and then one of the other partners, Bill and I, we started a gym. So it was called Silwar Athletics, and then
what was it called? Sorry,
Silwar, SILWAR.
Okay. So
we chopped up silent words. We weren't that creative, and we were just like, nobody will know what this is. Nobody's gonna ever steal the name. Like we'll just use that. And Aaron and I were friends at that time, so the three of us kind of came up with this idea for Compass Rose Apparel, which is the flannel you're wearing.
It is the flannel. It is my daily uniform.
Daily uniform.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very rarely do I not wear a Compass Rose flannel.
Yeah, that warms my heart. Yeah. So then from Compass Rose, Aaron started a butcher shop around the same time as Compass Rose, I think. Yeah. So a lot of like mom and pop shops, right, so to speak. So very small. At Compass Rose, the most we did was 500 flannels in a year is I think what we were shooting for.
We sold a little bit more than that.
We sold a little bit more, but it was small. It wasn't
pretty tiny.
A big company, right?
It was never really supposed to even be a business.
No. So originally, like Aaron and I were hunting, and I think we were both wearing flannels, like just got off work and went and sat in a deer stand, and we were BSing like, oh man, it's tough to find a made in USA flannel. So we're like, dude, we could make that happen. Like, we'll figure it out. How hard can it be? Right. It's really hard, by the way.
It's really hard.
It's really hard. Yeah, like the flannel you're wearing cost us like $70 to get made, which is insane. Like you can go buy a North Face flannel for like $50 or something.
Yeah,
you know? They make them for $6 in somebody's basement or something.
They make them in Vietnam or
little
wherever.
Kids. Can I say that? I probably shouldn't.
Tiny little hands are so.
Well, they work quickly.
They're so good at sewing. That's why all these companies use them.
Yep.
But even then, when you come to like, we were in a factory in the States, and it was like all Vietnamese people. It was awesome. We're like, so you have an American-made product, but it's all Vietnamese people like sewing it. It was awesome.
Yeah,
it smelled like a Vietnamese restaurant in there. They were all eating pho. It was super legit.
It's like you do what you know, right? So like if you were a Vietnamese family that came to the States, you're gonna do what you know, and if that's textiles, it's textiles. If it's something else, it's something else. Probably why we've gotten knee deep in like fitness and firearms is we've got a bunch of dudes that like shot guns and lifted weights for a decade or two, and we're like, well, let's just keep shooting guns and lifting weights.
Well, and it seems like well, you are a subject matter expert in those things. So even though, you know, there's like this hierarchy, I guess, in this subculture where, you know, the guys that get out of tier 1 units, they feel like they've got the monopoly on some of that because they're like, well, I was coming out of a tier 1 unit, and there are great instructors. You know, that's the thing is, there are great instructors that might have been a police officer, or, you know, 4, 6, 12 years in special operations. That doesn't necessarily mean, so if you've got 20 years at a tier 1 unit at SEAL Team 6 or Delta or somewhere like that, it doesn't mean that you're going to be a great instructor. It just means that you've got a great resume. And that's the thing that people don't really understand sometimes is, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean the resume. It actually means how they convey information and how you can break through some of those barriers. So it might be, you know, physical barrier, specifically, related to an injury and or a plateau of some type or a performance plateau, and I want to drive my split times with accuracy down to whatever. We've talked to a ton of guys about that on the show, so it makes sense for guys to make that transition from where they were over to the instruction side. I don't think they quite understand what they're signing up for sometimes, because it's really not that easy to make a living in that game. Everybody that seems like they've worn a pair of fucking 511 pants, they think
they've got
511
a shooting school.
Yeah, they're gonna be able to skin that thing and smoke it down, right? And it's like, man, you guys suck as instructors, and there are really good instructors out there, which I would be, I guess I would be remiss without kind of saying that not every instructor is created equal. I mean, Jerry Barnhart or Micklick or one of these guys, it's like those guys can throw down, and they don't have a military background.
No, I mean, the best shooters out there. And so this is actually one of the things, one of the guiding things that we do as SOFLETE is we pulled the soft truths, right? The 4 soft truths. And one of those is that soft needs non-soft help or assistance, right? Like that's universally accepted. And it's weird because when you get out of a unit or whatever, like you had 5 dudes that weren't operators helping you in your unit to every operator, and then you get out and guys are like, no, I only want to work with Green Berets or Raiders or SEALs or whatever it is. I'm like, no, man, like if I can pull a dude that's better than me at something and I need him for that, I don't care what he came from. If he's a good dude and he knows his job, his background's irrelevant, right? Like his experience and what he can continue to do is what matters.
Right.
And the best shooters in the world are not military guys, right? They're like some dude that goes and shoots games on the weekends, and that's what that guy does is he shoots steel or paper really fast and really accurate. And so if you were totally to discount that, you're really doing yourself a disservice.
Well, and it's such a one dimension of a diverse skill set in the military. Everybody thinks, well, you guys are going to be the best shooters in the world. It's like, well, to be good at direct action means that you're really good at emphasizing or complex problem solving at basically at that very high rate of speed, right? The speed of combat, and you're incorporating the skill sets or the sub skill sets of like shooting, and then when you bring in like maneuver, so then physical fitness and a bunch of other things, it means that you're a generalist, but you're a fucking really good generalist.
Yeah, you're like the best mediocre dude ever is really what it comes down to.
I'm 80% in a bunch of different things, but I'm not 100%.
We talk about that all the time. We actually, 2 of our guys just did a little joke. It was like best of the B team. It's like 2 middle-aged SF dudes that are like pretty good at things doing competing, and it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek joke, like they're really not amazing at anything, but they're pretty good at everything, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But so that's part of what we wanted to do at SOFLETE, was just to elevate the performance of the individual, and how you apply that to like whatever tactics or unit you happen to be at is up to you.
Right.
So we want to make you stronger, faster, better endurance, make you a better shooter, whether that's speed or accuracy. We want you better at both, and then you apply that wherever you apply that, because those skill sets are pretty universal, right? Like if you're a Green Beret, you should probably be really good at shooting in case the world burns down when you're with your 3 dudes in Indian country. Same thing if you're in MARSOC or the SEAL teams or whatever it is. So we've kind of come up with what we think is a solid universal platform to get guys stronger, faster, and better at shooting, and that's what we try to continue to push is basically that.
Yeah, and explain to us exactly, like, go into the details, the mission of SOFLETE, like the mission.
So the actual mission statement is to enable the combat athlete, or enhance the combat athlete. I think we have it as enhance. We actually just reworked it, to just kind of make it more concise, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it was really hard before, like, well, what do you guys do? When I explain it to somebody who has no idea what SOF is, and they're like, well, what's SOFLETE? I'm like, man, how do I distill this down to the simplest explanation? We're like, well, we do human performance to enhance the combat athlete.
Right.
And so everything that we do, we have, like we sell t-shirts and board shorts and like swag stuff that people want to support the company and wear that. But really what we do is develop programs for fitness and for shooting. And so we host those on our app, which in my opinion and the opinion of a lot of other guys, is the best fitness app out there. It tracks your performance. We can upload as many programs as we want on it. You can put your whole ODA, your SEAL team on it, or your fire department, or whatever you want on the app. So right now we basically have a stamina-focused program, a strength-focused program, a women's program, and then a shooting program. So the shooting program is like 3 days a week of dry fire and then 1 day a week of live fire drills.
Oh, okay. Nice.
So, yeah, and so it would break it down. Basically, it would be like, hey, today you're going to do XYZ presentation drills after doing like 100 kettlebell swings on a 1-inch pace to get 5 meters. Right? Like that would be a very simplified version of what it tells you to do. And then it'll track your results in there or give you a par time for like dry fire days.
Right.
And then live fire days, it's usually like an elevated heart rate drill. And the guy who, so a bunch of us design the program, and then the guy who writes the programs day to day is at a special mission unit. So everything is like, you can't get a more qualified resume than this guy, and he's still in it and doing it, right? Like total badass, for lack of a better term.
On top of that, I mean, there is no product like it out there.
There's nothing that does this in the way that, like, you can just throw it in your pocket and go out and.
Well, there's no continuous shooting program available.
No, there's like
how many guys you know that
cards.
just go to the range with a bunch of bag full of ammo and throw up a bunch of targets.
Pretty much everybody.
Yeah, throw a bunch of lead down range. Once or twice a week, maybe, and that's it. That's their training program. Yeah. So.
Well, it makes sense to me. I mean, we've thought about that for a long time. My business partner and I, when we were doing a lot of training, we were looking at, we were using Coach's Eye a lot, which was,
it's like a barbell app.
Yeah, it started as that, I think, and now like everybody's using it for like golf swings and things like that, because you can diagnose through slow motion video the angles, basically. And so we were using it or incorporating that into our shooting instruction because we wanted to emphasize, let's say, like, muzzle flip and how that actually directly translates into your ability to run the gun at a comprehensive, like, reduced split time, for instance. So it's like if your wrist isn't solid or your grip isn't solid, you get too much muzzle flip from that 9mm, it's impossible for you to actually drive the muzzle down to center within 0.15. You can't actually. So to emphasize a specific portion of your draw stroke and or the trigger pull or fundamentals of marksmanship, you'd have to break out the slow-mo camera because it's like, dude, this thing's ripping up to 30 degrees. But then the guy next to you, the reason that his split times are reduced is because he's only going up to 15. So that 15 degrees actually matters because it all translates to time. Right?
It's those like building blocks. Same thing with business. It's all building blocks, right? Like you can't, there's no, like Malcolm Gladwell talks about the tipping point. And I kind of believe there's somewhat of a tipping point, but really there's no tipping point. Like it's just little steps to get you there.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's the big thing with being a generalist, right? Which is, especially a guy that's taught a ton of people, is you start to realize that people, regardless of where they are, whether that's an Afghan that's got a 4th grade education or a soft guy, they actually hit the same type of plateaus at the same areas. And so it's interesting you guys have developed a comprehensive shooting, what would you call that?
We call it a shooting program or platform. Yeah, and it's one of those things where you can't fall, like we don't want it to be a field manual where you've fallen in love with doctrine. Right. So we're always running it by either active duty guys or just guys that are into the shooting scene, going, hey, what could be better? What's worse? What do you like? What do you not like? How can we refine that? Because so many of these guys that are getting out teaching this stuff are just in love with whatever they've been doing for years because it works. And like maybe something works better or maybe something's missing, and you can't get so in love with yourself and what you're teaching that you don't continue to progress. And so that's been a big thing for us, is having the buy-in from the active guys that are still doing it and continuing to progress in the program.
Yeah, that's super cool, man. Like I've been, dabbling, I guess, for a couple decades,
couple years. Yesterday
and
at lunch.
There really isn't anything out there that And we talked about it, I guess, inside the walls of our building all the time about how there's tons of programming available, man. You want to be a better deadlifter or Olympic lifter, you got coaches everywhere. There's programming and strength and conditioning programming just up the fucking wazoo.
Yep.
But if you want to become a better shooter, there's really not a lot of programming. They have, I've seen them, obviously, like where, guys will have PDFs and they'll print them off and they'll say, hey, this is, this is what we want to do. But nobody's really stepped into the modern age and used the technology that's available and incorporated into a smartphone and something like that.
Well, it has to be the right mix of technology. Like, technology is hated by our community, but it's also awesome and loved by the guys who understand the right application.
Right.
So there's a lot of, there's simulators that are totally, like you could set it up in this room and you've got a laser gun and it's going to show you shoot, no shoot things. And that's really cool. But the average dude or even the average team guy can't just download that, throw it in his pocket, head to the range and dry fire or live fire, right? He's got to have this crazy setup. And so everything that we are trying to do is well, what do guys have on hand that they can work with? They've got a gun, for one. You have to have that. And minimal equipment, and trying to build off of that. Because you can't get too in love with the technology, but it's necessary in order to really reach the masses, if that makes sense.
Well, you got to go to where people are, I think, and that's the thing, especially as a guy that runs a business, you really have to accept your fate to a certain degree. And if you're going to run a successful business today, you're going to have to use technology. You can't just
and design a long culture. If you dumped all your money into a Zune app, you're an idiot.
Right.
Right.
And you have no more money.
Yeah, right, because you would be fighting half of your market. Marketing would be trying to talk people into why using a Zune is better than an Apple product.
Right.
Yep.
No, and that's something.
But we see that in the same arena as guys. Instead of going, alongside culture, what are people doing right now? It's just still to this day, you have people out there with websites that aren't compatible on mobile devices. It's what the fuck is wrong with you?
It's insane.
Right.
Well, so I forget where I was reading this, but essentially it was talking about innovation can only happen to a small degree, right? When you veer way too far outside of the norm, people are just dude, that's too crazy. It may be the most innovative, awesome thing ever, but if it's too early or too soon or too counterculture, it won't work. And so your innovation has to be those building blocks where it's just small leaps and bounds, like a shooting program. Okay, we're going to get people used to that idea. Well, we didn't even do that, really. Other people train, they had cards or pamphlets, or just a shooting school had a POI. All right, well, people are used to that. There's a set way to teach shooting. And then we took it that step further and put some technology behind it to where you can throw it in your pocket and use it. And now we're going to do it where it's continuous and it's always progressing and evolving and changing. So it gives people those steps. So when people innovate too much, it almost becomes counterproductive to where it's not sustainable.
Right. Yeah, sometimes you're leaping too far forward. And I guess when you're innovated or too much innovation, you're too far ahead of what people are wanting to do.
Yeah, it's like introducing the iPhone before the dial-up telephones. It wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, it wouldn't have worked. And now it's people can't live without a smartphone. But when they first started coming out, it was oh, this thing's too big. What
Steve
the fuck
Jobs
do I need
said he would
all this?
never make a phone.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so Steve Jobs, one of his executives, basically came up with the idea for a Palm Pilot. And he was like, "Nah, I don't want that. We're not going to make phones." And so she went off and started Palm Pilot with some other dude. And then, I think he actually apologized and said, "Hey, I didn't see the forest for the trees."
I think he did not.
He did not. Is that
Steve
what it
Jobs
was? He did not apologize.
Definitely did not apologize.
That is not that
Aaron
guy's
and
MO.
read a lot of the same books, and so he probably was paying more attention than I was.
And I think that extreme innovation comes with the accessibility. If not everybody has accessibility to this, and this is too far out of reach, that's where you start hitting that problem.
Yeah, and some stuff is it's really cool, but you're just man, this is a 10-year innovation. You should just shelf that thing for a decade and then dust it off when it's ready, Yeah. But yeah, it's tough to teeter on that line.
That's pretty interesting. So, Aaron, come on, man. How do you fit into this whole equation? What's the...
Man, that's a great question. I kind of ask myself that almost every day.
No, man, Aaron's awesome. He's yeah.
Thanks, man. Right now, I really focus on the back end of the business.
Right.
Really just kind of making sure that the sausage gets made every day.
Of course, because you have a butcher shop.
Exactly.
Right.
No, you know, I mean, Brent's getting out soon, but he's clearly been kind of tied up with his real job.
Right.
And, you know, as he mentioned, one of the other partners is also still, you know, active duty.
Right.
And meanwhile, you know, someone needs to be kind of checking in on things day to day, answering the phones, answering emails, kind of pushing initiatives forward. And, you know, that's really kind of by default where I've fallen into. So
yeah, like we'll come up with a lot of good ideas or bad ideas more often than not, and Aaron gets the brunt of that when it's like, hey man, we want to make an app. Here's what we need it to do. Go figure out how to make this happen. Like Aaron's like, yeah, no problem, man. Like I'm just gonna go build an app, like done, or interface with the guys building the app. You know, there's a lot of stuff. The other good thing is having a company full of military guys. If you don't have a non-military business perspective,
Right.
you're pretty doomed to fail. I know you guys have some non-mil guys that, you know, you either bounce ideas off of or whatever it is. Like you have to have that different perspective.
You do, because the other thing is that military, or if you're marketing a product that's outside, or you know, the market is bigger than just military and or veterans, you really have to have that perspective. And the other thing is that we have a very myopic view of the veteran community because of our backgrounds. So like we think in a certain way, and we're like, well, everybody should fucking think like this, and like, not really, man. Like I was, you know, the last few years I was deploying, like I didn't talk to a lot of privates, and it wasn't because I didn't want to. I didn't have American privates. I had Afghans that were working for us.
Yep.
I didn't speak to an E3 or E4, the guy that just does 4 years, and like I said, not because it was by choice. It was just I wasn't in that portion of a unit, and I didn't get the chance to interact with anybody like that. I mean, it's not like there were E4s cruising around, you know, the station, the CIA's like station somewhere. There just wasn't.
Just hanging out.
Yeah, and so I didn't really get that close to what their perspective was. Actually, it wasn't until I got out and I started BlackRifle and I started talking to more and more veterans, actually diversified the way that I was thinking about the veteran community. It opened up my mind, and it actually made me way more accepting to the way that people were talking about the war as well, which is pretty interesting. So it wasn't just the fact that, you know, the war, but it's also the marketing specifically for BlackRifle isn't just about the veteran community. We are 65% veteran, but the company itself has to be able to go out and sell coffee to other people.
You have to have a business as well.
Yeah, you
like
have to have a business.
It can't just be a cool thing. It's got to pay the bills at the end of the day.
Yeah, we can't just be scooping fucking coffee off the floor that we're rebagging from Costco.
You could.
Know? We could be, sure, but then that would make us Bush League.
That'll be the new
someone
SOFLETE blend.
That'll be all the other coffee companies that don't have roasters. So.
yeah, but I think for us too, we found that there was on the kind of the back end of our work cultures a lot of interesting overlap. I think, you know, the first time when I was back on Wall Street that I brought Brent into my office, he was like, dude, this is like a team room.
Really?
And
well, all right, so I walk in and nobody's in suits. First off, like one dude's in pajamas, another dude's in like a nice button down. There's a dude at a desk without a shirt on.
What?
He's got a bottle of Grey Goose next to his desk, and I'm like, dude, what the hell is going on here? He's like, yeah, pretty much like if you're good at your job, they don't care what you do. And I was like,
Yeah.
I'm down with that.
That's a good motto.
I like that.
yeah, it was performance based.
Yeah,
So-
perform or don't.
But I think in that, you know, it's one of the reasons that we work together, not only Brent and I, but, you know, all the partners at SOFLETE, even though we come from really different backgrounds, there is kind of a cultural tie-in that
Sociopathic tendencies.
Yeah, I think an operational environment that we're used to that is pretty similar.
Oh, fuck yeah.
So-
Yeah.
Well,
Well, I think it not to interrupt.
No.
He's trying to circle
JT
us
had a
out of
thing.
here.
Yep.
Yep.
No, I think that it's
We're at the 2-minute warning.
2-minute warning. No, I think that's where anywhere you go where people are more concerned with the performance than they are aesthetics. And that's where, like I love dealing with just data, just numbers specifically, because and I always tell people is like, don't listen to what I say, just watch what I do, because what I say most of the time doesn't really make sense. So just fucking watch what people do. And if you're watching and looking at what they're doing, that means way more than anything they could ever say. Because you could say whatever the fuck you wanted to, like, oh yeah, I'm going to move the moon today. Yep. But it doesn't matter. And then when you get those people that are absolutely driven by, the non-aesthetics, but their priorities are right, they move the needle in huge ways that really matter to a business, the core competencies or however you want to.
And don't need credit.
They don't need credit. Like, those are the guys that don't need to say anything. Like, they really don't, and you need to leave them the fuck alone. Like, you just need to leave them alone.
Just let them do their thing.
Like, just let them do their shit.
Yeah.
If you don't, like, you run the risk of, butting heads and, chasing off good people, and then all of a sudden your business is based on inaccurate priorities. They make more of like a diffuse mission set, which ultimately just causes a quagmire.
You got to play to people's strengths.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well put.
Play to, like Aaron just distilled 5 minutes of conversation.
Cliff notes.
Plug all your accounts.
Yeah, plug them all.
All of them.
SOFLETE.com, Instagram, SOFLETE HQ, and what's our Facebook? SOFLETE HQ or SOFLETE?
Yeah.
I think it's Facebook /
SOFLETE.
Yeah, SOFLETE.
SOFLETE.
It's French.
Yeah, SOFLETE. We're a new coffee company. We don't have any roasters.
Oh, there's enough of those veteran coffee companies out now, so that's good. Let's join the party.
One more.
Join them.
Lattes.
Yeah, latte only coffee company.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you guys for being out here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
See you guys.
Black Rifle Coffee Company, along with Arson Wave, would like to thank you for tuning in to Blackhearted. Have a great fucking day.